welcome everybody to the profitability workshop in collaboration with Square. I'm excited to welcome Ming to the webinar today. For those of you who don't know, today we're going to be talking all about profitability, especially for independent operators. Ming, I'm super excited to have you on the webinar with me this time. You have such a unique perspective. Not only are you heading up, basically Square's point of sale for all restaurants, but you're also an operator yourself. You have some concepts, right?
Yeah, that's right. I know we've had so many conversations over the years of working together in this industry, and often those topics are about how do we help the restaurants ultimately keep more money in their pockets. And I think there's some really good content that we're going to talk about today that goes over those points.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to dig in. So before we get, kind of jump into a lot of like the tips and tricks, I always want to start with just kind of laying some groundwork out, so that we can just make it easier for everyone to think about their restaurant, especially when we're talking about technology. Things get confusing really fast. So there's a couple of frameworks, a couple of structures that we want to go over first. And the first one is the tech stack, right? And so a lot of restaurateurs have 10, 20, 30 plus different technologies that they're using to actually run their business. And a lot of times it can be confusing on where each one kind of fits. So what we've done here is we've kind of developed think about your tech stack in kind of three levels. You kind of have the top, the middle, and the bottom. So at the top of the stack, we kind of have this thing called the off-premise platform. And it's not just off-premise orders, but it's like literally everything occurring off-premise or outside your four walls. So whether that be how you show up on Google My Business or your Yelp page or what your reviews and ratings are, if you're doing paid ads or social posts, email marketing, anything that's kind of occurring outside of the four walls. So this also is your website and your different ordering channels. You may have some, or a lot of different tech providers kind of in this, but we really like to kind of think of this as like its own kind of section of your tech stack. And the next one we have is the point of sale system. And for here, it starts with everything inside the four walls. It's the payments, the KDS, the kitchen printers. It's what holds all your data, your customer data, order data, menu data, all those different things. Table management for those who are in full service, and then kiosk as well. Ming, I know that Square had a big kind of announcement at NRA earlier this year where they kind of had this beautiful kiosk solution. So I'd love to hear you talk more about the point of sale as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Think about all these pieces in your stack do connect together and they flow into pinch points or into areas that really help you drive optimization. Optimization equals profitability in a lot of ways in your business. You don't have like five kitchens in one in one restaurant. You have one, and it's really important for you to make sure that all of these platforms are connecting well together with your point of sale system in order for you to drive those efficiencies. And yes, that could be off-prem, it could be new technology like kiosk, like Square just released, receiving tons of great feedback on how restaurants are optimizing their labor by moving people around, actually, not necessarily removing jobs. By having a kiosk technology, being able to be in that front of house partnership and front of house technology, and it not taking away from the hospitality, even seeing higher cards on kiosks than they are at their actual cashier desk.
Yeah, and I think that's most of the you talk about making labor scheduling a little easier. All of these technology solutions typically result maybe and they result in labor savings, but a lot of times they also just enable for more time to be spent on the guest and on hospitality, so that staff can spend less time in front of a screen, more time interacting with customers. And
Yeah, that's right. And then also in a recent study that we've done with, in particular, restaurant diners, it's interesting. 3 out of 4 would prefer, so it's not a pure towards the transaction count, but prefer to interact with a digital experience rather than talk to a person. Maybe it's a little bit the state of where we are in our world, but basically having those really awesome guest experiences meet the needs while you can run the business as efficiently as possible, delivering on top-notch food, top-notch drink, and great hospitality is still paramount.
got to meet the customers where they are. Yep, 100%. And then we think about the bottom of the tech stack, right? So when we think about this, anything that has to do with like reporting or like the literal like the food, or anything that it actually takes to really kind of like staff and run that restaurant. So everything from like food purchasing, the supply chain, the recipe management, accounting, anything around staffing, scheduling, or reporting. These are this kind of part of the stack is kind of what catches all of those things and allows different outputs. Whether it's integrated or CSV exports, there's a lot of different ways that that data ends up coming through. And this isn't hard and fast rules. Like even Ming talked about, there are point of sale companies that have some features, right, that are in the off-premise category or that are in the back office category. I mean, I know some of these, back office companies that actually have a couple of features that are in the off-premise category. So there's always a little bit of overlap there, but it's a really easy way to think about the tech stack. It's a really simple way to kind of to view it through that lens, so that it's easier for you to understand all these different solutions and how they work together. The next one we want to talk about is the digital storefront. So at Chowly, we work with a lot of really fast growing brands, and all of them have kind of this one thing in common, is that they're paying as much, if not more, attention to their digital storefront as their physical storefront. Right. So tons of restaurants love to spend time on, what do the tables look like inside the restaurant? What's the theme that we have here? Where are the menu boards? Where are logos? What kind of paneling? Like there's all this time spent on the aesthetic that's attached to these restaurants in the physical storefront. And what we found is we're seeing a lot of restaurant groups that are giving that same attention to detail to their digital storefronts. So when they look at their Google My Business profile, they're actually uploading 2 or 3 photos every single month from theirs, because they don't want to have to potentially rely on user generated pictures, which may or may not have great lighting. They may or may not be as appetizing. And so there's all these little things that you can do to help make your, pay that attention to the digital storefront, to make sure that you have that same aesthetic and that same kind of experience, because that's the way a lot of consumers are experiencing the restaurant. It used to be you'd always look for, where can I get the most foot traffic, like physical foot traffic? Am I near a mall back in the day, or am I near, a potential, attraction, these days? And the other thing that we like to think about with digital storefronts is this idea of that, like, you have all these different doors, right? So like Google, that's probably the biggest door, right? That's like, a fire station door going up and down. Like there's going to be a ton of traffic through there, whether it be reviews, maps, like any of those things. But like Yelp is another door. Like that's how some of the other ones are experiencing your brand or discovering you, or TripAdvisor, or even some of the third-party marketplaces. And so what you have to think about is that if your information isn't up to date there, like if your hours aren't up to date, it's almost the equivalent of looking closed or having a closed sign up on that door. So just ensuring that kind of like this digital storefront, that you kind of pay as much attention to it as a physical storefront. And I actually think this is an advantage for restaurants. Your physical storefront is hard to move. Like you have a landlord, you have real estate, like you have a deal, like you're locked in. But your digital storefront, I mean, if you spend enough time on it, you could basically move it, from wherever you're at to the corner of First and Main, right? And to get all that digital foot traffic if you put time into it. You're going to chime in there, Ming.
Yeah, I think you hit on the head there really well, which is the digital storefront's really important, and the information on it being accurate. And we're going to talk a little bit about that later as well, on how to keep it accurate. But I would say, like, look, the bar here is no longer at the bottom. It's not like no one is on the internet buying food and drink. And so when someone comes to your restaurant and they can tell what kind of a potential experience that they're going to get by the finishing touches, by the hospitality you provide, it's the same thing happening with your website. It's the same thing happening with your information, your digital footprint. People can tell whether or not you are taking it seriously or not, and then it has an expectation being set on what experience that they're potentially getting involved with. And maybe they don't like it, and therefore you never get that guest.
Yeah, when we talk about kind of capturing demand, trying to convert a website visitor to an order, in a lot of our research and a lot of our data and investigation, confidence ends up being one of the biggest roles. Does that experience create confidence that the order is going to go through, that you're going to like the food, that the delivery is going to be on time, all these things. So it's an extension of your brand. In the digital storefront, I mean, this is how you create demand now. It's not necessarily about being in the best location. It's about really having that digital storefront as an extension of your brand. All of this comes with a huge disclaimer, though. So I like to give a big disclaimer on all of this stuff. None of it works if your ops aren't on point. Like if the menu's not quite ready, if the staff isn't quite trained, or if you're still kind of working through the kinks of a new manager, or you're doing a remodel, or you haven't, or menu hasn't quite adjusted for some of the increase in prices, you might be not really making as much money on certain items. Like these things have to be fixed first. No amount of marketing will fix those things. And I see so many restaurants just go straight to this. I'm just going to buy some Google ads, or I'm going to boost my Facebook post. And even if they are successful in driving more traffic, it's not going to be repeat because the ops just aren't ready. So none of this fixes ops. You got to take care of that first and foremost.
I agree. Look, I think at the end of the day, the restaurant business is a people business, is a team business. It's definitely good to think about what can I do? How can I drive more business? And I totally want operators to figure out, okay, how do I get better? How do I do better than I did last week? We all want to make more money. And so, but you have to do that within consideration of how does it affect my guests? How does it affect my team? Think it through really hard. Don't let that be a reason why you don't do things. Continue to tell yourself, like, let's do this, and this is what we need to be successful.
Yeah, and everyone, there's always a common topic of like technology taking the hospitality out of hospitality, but
Mhm.
this side is proof of the exact opposite. Like the tech won't work. Like you won't reap the benefits of it if you don't actually have like good hospitality and good ops at your core. All right, so the last one that I have, I'll be really curious, Ming, on your thoughts on this one. A question that I get asked all the time is, well, what do I post about? Like, what do I just find the National Hot Dog Calendar and like send a post out, related to that? And one of the things that we always talk about is the hospitality moment, right? Every great restaurant brand has this, and there's usually one, sometimes two, but basically it's the one thing that your customers or the diners are going to remember, right? When they're talking about it to their friends, they're going to say, "Oh yeah, like I love this place." They like I'll take one of the examples on the slide. All their sandwiches are named after like weed slang, like Chiba Hut subs, which is a fast growing chain. Like the consumers really can only remember one thing, so try to give that to them, and you can post about it as many times as you want. I mean, it's not like Chick-fil-A says my pleasure like once or twice. Like, I mean, they say it every single time, and they're so consistent about it. It can be simple things. It can be the owner's personality. There's a restaurant near me where he has his ties like cut off halfway, and he's kind of like this caricature. He's really nice, really funny guy, and that's what you remember about the place. The food's great, staff is great, but like I always think of Carlos, and like Carlos like always provides such a unique experience there. Egg sandwiches, they ask you if you want a lollipop with every sandwich, because Ike, the founder, is a bald head, right? And so like they can be anything, but you want to try to find that hospitality moment. So I'm curious, with all of your experience on both sides of the coin, Ming, where you kind of sit on this.
Yeah, absolutely. Whether it's in the four walls and creating that great experience. I have full service restaurants and quick service restaurants. It's you're really trying to drive a wonderful experience. Yes, that means the food tasting good, getting to the table on time, it being accurate. We specialize in my restaurant group really taking allergy seriously. I think basically we all have to these days because it's sometimes life or death for for some guests who have like very significant allergies these days. But that experience and that focus on you, the individual, is something that goes a long way. And the little things count too, like you said, where no one leaves my full service restaurant without hearing from somebody, from a manager or the host stand, saying thank you very much for coming. Like you don't walk out the door without feeling that hospitality, even on the way out, even though you just spent 2.5 hours there getting great hospitality, it's always till the end until you walk out that door. And then the same occasion of where, hey, it's your birthday, you're celebrating a special moment, that those are honestly layups, but they're also dangerous. You can't mess those up either. Whether it's bringing a candle or something special to the table, people want to feel really great because they're going to come away with, hey, I had a wonderful time, at that place. And the food might have been okay, actually, right? But if they had a wonderful time, that's something that they'll cherish forever, and they'll likely, well, more apt to return. As far as
Yeah.
posting is concerned, I think about authenticity, right? No
Yeah.
one wants to kind of look at something being like, that's fake or that's just trying too hard or whatnot. Authenticity is just really important. Just be yourself. Don't try too hard. Do what you do and honestly talk about it. People like hearing about their local business. Make it relevant to what you're doing as a business. And I think that's usually well received.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I'm thinking back as you're mentioning these, and I can remember multiple restaurant experiences. There's one restaurant in Chicago I used to go to, and every single staff member, when they walked by you, would say good evening. Like, so on your way to the bathroom, you'd walk by a server, they would say good evening. Then like a runner would say good evening. Then a busser would say it. And so by the time you went to the bathroom and back, like six different people told you good evening. And it was kind of like a funny thing. Like and but I still remember that. And my wife and I actually still talk about that. But it also was a genuine undercut of like that restaurant. They were so like people oriented. They would have conversations with you. They'd ask you tons of questions. It was a very very like experiential brand, and so it fit really well. So definitely, I'm with you 100% there. All right, so now with our groundwork laid, the most important part is just how are restaurants getting more orders today? Right. So super simple. Like, how do we get more orders? How do we get more profits? How do we get more dollars in your pocket? And so what we talk about is kind of the three C's. And this is creating demand, capture demand, and converting that demand. These most restaurants I talk to are doing a lot of different pieces of this. Some of them are even doing all of them. But when all of them are going and hitting and working in concert with each other, that's when we're seeing brands like really thrive. And especially in today's market with the food costs, with the labor costs, with the additional regulatories, with the interest rate environment, it's one of the hardest times to run a restaurant. Yet there are still so many that I see are having huge 20, 30, 40% year over year growth and really great profit margins. And a lot of them who are doing orders are doing the things kind of in this framework. So we'll step one through them, one by one. The first one is around creating demand. Now, within the three C's, I also have the three A's. If you can't tell, big fan of the rule of threes. But when we think about kind of creating demand, this is like the top of funnel, right? So this is the tippy top. This is how we can create more digital foot traffic. So the first one we start with is awareness. The way that I describe this is basically people are searching for pizza and then they find your restaurant. But once you've done a good job with awareness, you can move to the next step, which is acquisition. And people are like, oh, I'm in the mood for pizza. I want to go to Ming's pizza shop. Right. So they're associating with you. So the search is almost starting with your restaurant rather than starting with just the idea of food. And then the third stage, once you've kind of done this, it's really around attribution. Right. At that point, we can start doing targeted ads and acquiring, a lot of these different searches and a lot of different, starts the ordering process. The best way that I've seen to kind of measure or look at these is through Google Ads. It doesn't have to be a huge ad campaign. In fact, most of the restaurants we work with, when we start working with them, we usually tell them they're spending too much on Google Ads to start, because by just doing $3 to $5 a day, you can collect all the data that you need to measure exactly where you are in this awareness, acquisition, and attribution funnel. An example, we were working with an ice cream shop a few weeks ago, and we were just running this $3 a day. We were just buying their brand name, and Google will then tell you how people end up finding you. And what we ended up realizing is that bakery was a pretty common term that ended up at this ice cream shop, but they weren't a bakery. But then when we followed it all the way through, we actually saw that a fair amount of people may have started their journey by searching for a bakery near me, but then ended up ordering ice cream from this ice cream shop. And so what we started to do is we started to put bakery as a word that we want to acquire, right? So then people are thinking of bakery, like they'll start thinking of this restaurant. And we saw a huge increase in orders from them once we started targeting that word because it ended up being a bakery desert. I don't think that's an actual thing, but in this particular area, there just were no bakeries. And so an ice cream shop was actually kind of like the next best alternative. And so just buying the keyword name, learning the data, and kind of one by one, kind of seeing what that hyper local kind of search is, has been a way we've seen a lot of huge increases, to this digital foot traffic and some of this top of funnel traffic that ends up turning into orders. Have you done any Google ads at any of your restaurants, Ming? I know I'm
And yes,
springing this on you, so
yeah. Yes and no. I've used it in a lot of ways, really to drive digital traffic,
yeah,
and in places where I know that something's really important. Less on actual driving towards maybe the one-off order or sort of the typical like takeout delivery order. I'm really interested because of my full service restaurants in driving traffic for private events. So like
yep,
people always are looking for where can I throw my birthday party? Where can I throw this office event? Those are really awesome tickets to win. I think we all know as operators, parties are great. They're good for the bottom line. This whole thing's about profitability. So I'm willing to spend, to acquire those because I'm going to get ideally a 4,000, a 5,000, a $10,000 ticket, with procuring sort of those types of ads. Um, yeah, that's how I would think about it. A little
I
bit
know,
more
I
laser
know.
focused.
Yeah, we do that sometimes for reservations, events, catering. I know a lot of restaurants that their kind of main business is basically break even, and 100% of their profits come from catering and events. Um, they're scheduled. It's one big order. Like the margins are bigger, and so they kind of have the rest of this restaurant to kind of keep things going, but the profits end up coming from these other channels.
Absolutely. Look, private events, catering, maybe not the largest revenue center, but the largest profit center
Yep.
in the business. And it makes a lot of sense. One thing I want to mention about, sort of some of the audience, you may not be ready to do Google Ads and try to trace it through. You should definitely consider it, right? Why not? Especially if no one else in your neighborhood is doing it as well. But it's not rocket science also either. This is a way for you to do something at scale, which if you think about the infinitesimal, like the thing that's happening is it's almost basically just asking a guest that comes in your restaurant being like, how did you find us? Right? And that question is really powerful for you. You know that. But try to do that like at scale where you can do that for 1,000 people in a day as opposed to just the few that walk in your restaurant.
Yeah, we talk about all the time that a lot of times sometimes the awareness stuff it will drive traffic on its own, but even if it doesn't, the true value is the data that you get because you get to know your customers better, right? You get to like you said, you get to know how are they finding you, and any business, whether it's a tech business or a restaurant, the better you know your customers, like the better you can dial your business around that to optimize it and make it better. So we talked about creating, right? So let's say we've created a bunch more digital foot traffic. Now we've actually got to capture it, right? And so we believe that capturing that predominantly comes through your first party ordering. Now, in this scenario, I spend most of my time and my examples are on the takeout and delivery side of things. That's where Chowly specializes, where we spend a lot of time. And so a lot of my examples are there. But if you replace orders with reservations, or if you replace it with like a catering or an event lead form, it's a similar process and similar concept. But our first party, like your online ordering, that's your most profitable channel. You get all your customer data. You can have automatic upsells. You can provide customized experiences. You do like that is like your kind of your that's the primary channel that you really want to drive everything to. But third party ordering, and these are the marketplaces, the Grubhub, Uber, DoorDashes of the world, Easy Cater as well for their marketplace function. Um, I don't believe that these are creating demand for your restaurant. I believe they're capturing demand that's already there, right? They have created their own discovery platform. They're creating all the demand kind of for you and then capturing it. And then you're paying kind of those commissions. And there's a couple things that we talk about with third party, but this is another way to capture some more demand. You can increase kind of the top line, but there are there are things that you always need to consider when kind of having those third party marketplaces. And my number one and number two are just make sure you know your true cost, like your true cost, not just the commission rate. If they're running any promotions, if they're doing any refunds or chargebacks, like know the true cost of it, and then just make sure that's integrated so that it fits into your flow. Those are the two things we always talk about with third party ordering.
Yeah, look, on this one, I'll say that there's, I don't think there's necessarily a right answer here. It kind of depends on your environment and ultimately maybe how your guest is ultimately wanting to purchase and to buy. It's hard to change behavior, but in a lot of ways, if you make things easy and simple for your guests, you can push them in certain different directions. So at my restaurant, Amba, our Mediterranean fast casual restaurant, using Square for online ordering, um, that is basic. If you want to do pickup, and which is often because no one wants to wait in line anymore these days. There's nowhere that you can find on our website that you can go somewhere else to do pickup. Now, that possibility does exist, if you go to like the Uber Eats website or whatnot, but we don't advertise it that way. And so, like, in this point of capturing intent, lead your guests to where you
Yep.
want them to go. And you're not going to get everybody that way, right? But it's going to ultimately pay off if you can make it simple for the type of margins that you want to drive.
Yeah, they are responsible for creating the demand for their platforms, not you. Your focus should be on driving demand to your platforms. The fact that you go to your restaurant's website and you only see the direct, like that is exactly what you're doing. You don't need to make their jobs any easier. That's what those commission charges are for. Then as we have convert. Now convert means a couple things. You've got to convert these orders into something you can execute, which means it has to be integrated. All right. You need to convert these orders into repeat customers. This is a classic 80-20 rule. 80% of your profits are coming from 20% of your customers. There was a study last year that came out from Chip, who does a profitability summit, Chip Close, and they found that 70% of the customers on average at a restaurant only order one time. So converting these orders when they do come into repeat customers is huge for profitability. And then lastly, just convert the sales into profits. On the third party marketplaces, if your margins can't handle a 20% commission, then you need to adjust your prices. You may get less orders from them, but you have to do that because otherwise you're just bringing in orders that aren't profitable. Dynamic pricing, really cool way to do that. Chowly does that with, oh man, I think we're closing in on 1,000 restaurants that have it. So when you're busier, we can increase those prices by 10%. And that can make them, extremely profitable. And again, put more dollars in the bottom line. But converting
Yeah.
this into something you can execute, repeat customers, and profits, those are the focuses. Go ahead, Ming.
Yeah, I'll say on the repeat customers, another study, and it was HBS talking about how it is 6 times more expensive to get a new guest than it is, the one that you already have. So repeat are huge opportunities for you to improve your profitability simply because it just costs more money to get new ones. And then on the converting sales to profits, for those who are really good at food costs, like this is where your opportunity is to optimize. If you've got an item that is awesome, your guests love it, but it's kind of expensive, it's kind of in the 35% food cost range. Maybe you shouldn't offer it on the most expensive channels. Maybe you should only
Yep.
keep that on your first party channels.
Yeah, and that's another. I mean, look, you can view that, lower margin item as a marketing cost, right? I mean, at the end of the day,
Yeah.
that's basically what it is. And so, when you're spending dollars on marketing, the purpose should be to drive them to your own channels, right? Again, you don't need to make that investment in those third party channels. So another good. Good point there. Talked about groundwork. We talked about some of the tips, tricks. We talked about a few kind of frameworks and ways to think about this. So next, talking about Chowly and Square, how we can do a lot of these things for you.
Yeah,
Um, so
we can do a lot.
yeah, we can do a lot and even more together. Yeah, like Chowly, look, we're over 17,000 restaurants in the U.S. use us. We've been integrating orders for a long time. Actually, we're slightly older than Uber Eats. Ming actually worked with us in our very, very early days, so he's gotten to see a lot of it. We started in third-party marketplace integration, and now we're doing everything on the from the digital marketing to first-party ordering, integration, dynamic pricing, all things geared around kind of that off-premise platform and how we can create more orders and more profits for our restaurants. And fitting in exactly into the framework. On the create side, Chowly can do Google and Meta paid ads. We can help manage social posts. We can help manage reviews and ratings. We can do listings management. We can make sure all those doors on your digital storefront are always open. We can do the first party ordering, the third party, and on the convert side, we've been doing point of sale integrations for a very long time. We've got our smart pricing, which is dynamic pricing, to help be able to make sure that we're converting those sales into profits. And email marketing, that's the number one tool that get from a technology perspective to get those repeat customers. So all things that are kind of part of the Chowly suite now. And what I want to talk about here, and this is a common point that we talk about in the restaurant tech space a lot, is around integration. Not all integrations are created equal. When you're talking to different tech companies, I have an integration with X company or their logos on the site. That's not where the questioning ends. You really have to go deep because not all integrations are created equal. They all have different speeds. They all have different little feature sets and nuances on there. They may integrate with orders, but they don't integrate with loyalty. They might not have live 86ing. They might not be able to support multiple payments. Like there's all these little things. So anytime you're looking at integrations, at point of sale integration, I always tell all of our restaurants, like, go a step or two further to make sure that integration truly does what it needs to do. And Ming, given your experience, you know probably more about integrations in the point of sale than most anybody in the space.
Yeah, I've overseen over 100 integrations of all types, and look at Square, over 100,000 restaurants just in the United States. We pride ourselves on having an open platform, so a lot of integrations occur. Some built by customers themselves, obviously really great ones built by like Chowly. And so really we want obviously the best in class to be able to occur. And one of the questions that you can do is to ask like, well, it's not necessarily do you have an integration? It's kind of like, does this integration work for me? This is my style of service. These are my steps of service. This is how my team operates. Um, and for you to really kind of pressure test that and make sure it meets the needs. In some cases, you might actually have support and integration for what you want, but it's not maybe set up the right way. And so like that's really, really important in your onboarding process, and the type of white glove service that Chowly can provide is you ask those really hard questions about like, hey, when this happens, what happens? And that will make sure that you're set up for success with the integration.
Yeah, I was just on a call with a customer today where they were asking if we could support a particular part of loyalty, and we were able to go into the Square dashboard and set it up. They didn't want just points; they wanted specific items, and there's a setting right there for it. So, like you said, a lot of times stuff will work, but there's a little configuration work to do. And specifically around Chowly and Square and our integration, like we from everything from a fully customizable, first party ordering experience. They're your colors, they're your fonts, right? There's multiple layouts. It's not a template. It'll feel like your brand and an extension of your brand, like we talked about with that digital storefront when you're ordering through it. But at the same time, like we're also integrated into Square payments, so there's no extra payment work. Everything just flows through. All your rates and everything that you've already went through with Square. We have the loyalty integration so that we can help get more repeat customers and create incentives around point collection and LTOs to better target them. Gift cards, our gift card integration goes live in 6 days. It goes live on Tuesday. and then as well as promo codes, which are incredibly helpful, especially in email marketing, where you can kind of do some targeting on segments and things like that. So just examples of, you know, this is one of the more tightly integrated partnerships that we have at Chowly. And a lot of that has to do with the API environment and the integration environment that Square has, just like Ming was just talking about.
I want to make sure everybody knows, like, not even speaking just as Square, but as an operator, being granted how important integration is and the smoothness of having pieces really work well together. Ultimately, if it's not, it's going to cost you somewhere. I'm going to give everybody here on this and the webinar who's watching this like the benefit of the doubt. You know how to run your business. You know what works, and you want technology to create leverage for you to be able to do that at scale, do it faster. And one of the big things about technology is it can start making you just make decisions sometimes of, well, half of my thing works this way, half of my thing works this way. Well, you can't make decisions now as a business effectively and clearly with the data when you don't have the full answer. So integration is really important for you to be able to say, hey, this is working or not working. I can tweak it. And you can get a really good conviction that you're reading that situation correctly.
And that I would extend that. That's true for tech companies too. the
Yeah, it's a
like
general work for all businesses.
I was gonna say I can think of times in like building Chowly. I was like, yeah, I can. We had two systems and like two different ways, and it was way harder to make decisions. And so that's I've had that experience even on the tech company side. Some testimonials on the Chowly side. Worked with a company called Righteous Q, some amazing barbecue. We worked with them a lot on the digital marketing side. So a lot on that awareness and attribution. We started working with them in February, and I think by is either April or May, they were up to a 48% increase in their profit margins year over year. And it was each month we were seeing, monthly sales increase, almost 10% a month as we were getting some of those programs live. So that, yeah, as we've done some videos and stuff with his name's Patrick, and I mean I like to take credit for a lot of that because we did a lot of work, but that barbecue is also absolutely delicious. He has some great pictures, so that definitely plays a huge role into it. We also work with Smoke and Oak Fired Pizza. Chowly Online Ordering has seen a big increase in their sales through their off-premise. A lot of that has to do just with kind of the conversion rates that we have, that extension of their brand. Right, it feels like you're ordering from them. You have tons of consumers of confidence as they're going through it, and we've seen some really big increases for them. Two Eggs, I love this. They launched with our dynamic pricing, so they're busy. We raised prices by 10%. They have two locations, and each one is going to make over $60,000 this year in profit from that. They don't do anything. They flip a switch, all right, and then we look at the data, figure out when they're busy. We look at a few different sources. We adjust the prices, and I mean that's just money straight in their pockets. So whether they're using that to make a boat payment or to invest in a third location, huge success story that we had kind of working with our smart pricing tool.
Great examples. No, I'm in. Yeah, I want to find some opportunities like that.
for your boat payment or another location?
Another location, growth mindset, or maybe new HVAC, which seems to be the thing every other year.
Yeah, for sure. I think this is the last topic we have, and we talk a lot with operators about return on time. So return on investment, super common. Most everyone knows what it is, right? I invest $10 and I make $20, right? So I had a 2x return on investment. But especially independent restaurants and smaller groups that might be at 1, 2, 3 locations that are trying to get to that initial scale. This ends up being one of the most important things, is that return on investment is important, but it's not the financial side of it as much as your return on your time. There are so many tasks that can be automated or that distract you or that you may not be great at, but you're good enough and you can get it done. But just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it. Most chefs have the creative mind to, write and orchestrate a symphony, right? They could do it. Like they have the mind to do it, but it doesn't mean they should. Right. And so really trying to think through how can I spend my time on the things that are going to provide real impact and are going to provide incremental value. Whether that's things around like reporting and reconciliation, whether that's things around disputing refunds on third parties, or updating your hours manually on Google for a holiday coming up. Like these are things that can be automated, and every time you automate them, there's a financial impact, but more importantly, there's a time impact in that you can now spend more time with your customers, with your brand, working on the next location, training up a manager, getting a staff promoted. Like there are so many of these other things that really compound as you do them versus things that don't. And so really trying to look things through the ends on return on time. And I'm sure this is something that resonates with you, Ming, as you've been kind of growing, that restaurant business.
Yeah, look, I think, look, it's the restaurant business. There's a million things you can probably work on to improve your business. And the important thing is to know which of those are the ones that are the most important. I also like to think of how do I empower my team, right? I don't want to take things completely out of their hands because that's their job. They know the guests really well. They're, running all the shifts in the stores more often than I am. And so, what I want for them to do is to have the data, have the information that makes them make better decisions, right? And what I want them to do is then say like, hey, like, well, I'm able to solve like 25% of our problem. I could get to 80% if I had this, and that. And then that's a great opportunity for automation and technology really to step in, where you can never get to that with just like throwing bodies at it. But at least you have that ground truth and really understanding, hey, this is a problem we're solving. And so that's really important, I think, in this equation of technology and also maximizing your return on time.
Yeah, it's we're gonna be a multiplier, right? You're better off making three people 10 times more efficient, or sorry, 10% more efficient than you are, doing it yourself because you can do it 10% faster. Right. And so, trying to be that multiplier with the team. I think about that one a lot. And I think with that, is that with kind of the prepared slides and turn it over to Q&A? We got a couple questions in the Q&A section. I'll read these. If anyone has more questions, feel free to throw them in the chat or throw them in the Q&A, and Ming and I will kind of work our way through them. So first one is from Ming, or for Ming. Would love to know more about Square's capabilities for full service restaurants. You want to spend a little
Yeah,
bit
all
of time
right.
talking
Great,
about
great
that?
question, Anna. Thanks. I'll give a little voiceover, but certainly you can navigate to our website. We have a page specifically for full service restaurants. You can see what we're offering with respect to table management, our handheld experience, really kind of enhancing that guest experience. Full service very much focused on those tables and how do you turn them faster, but then also continue to offer really a great experience. I'll speak to integration as well, since we've been talking about that. We have some great integrations with reservation partners that are really exceptional, where you can actually see some of your guest information directly in the point of sale, not just that paper chit anymore. And that's really important, obviously, for your first touch on tables for full service.
You're
But
saying you
yeah,
had handheld. You have the handhelds. You have the line handhelds for all of your table service ones too.
yeah, that's right.
Oh, those are game changers. Every time I talk to a restaurant when they make the switch, I think the data is just immediately giving returns on that. Awesome.
Yeah, for faster, for speed, obviously taking payment, and we're continuing to invest heavily in full service and that experience. So stay tuned for things that we'll be announcing in the future.
Good tease. Love that. Next question. Square user here. Where can we get pricing for Chowly online ordering? And do the payments, loyalty, gift cards, and promo code integrations with Square come included, or at separate costs? Is marketing also included? So, shorter answer. On our website and chatting with our team, we can go kind of detailed on pricing. The payments, loyalty, gift cards, and promo integrations are all included. So those are and that's part of the online ordering experience, in our opinion. So those things are included at no cost from the Chally side. Marketing is a separate product and is an additional cost. So we have a couple packages where we work with paid ads, social posts, email marketing, and things like that. Those are all kind of available at separate cost structures. There's a little bit different kind of product experience, so take a little bit more work to get set up as well. But on the integration side, yep, all those integrations are included. So out of the box with Chally online ordering, you've got it right there. Next question we have is Square or Chally processor agnostic. For I can speak on the Chally side. If we can integrate with the point of sales payments, that's typically what we do. There are some point of sales that don't allow us or don't have kind of the capability to do it. For those, we use Stripe as kind of our processor. But for Square, we're using Square as the processor. Ming, speak to kind of Square's processor stance.
Yeah, absolutely. For Square in-person payments, you have to use Square payments. There's tons of benefits associated with that, given that there's a lot of association with a guest and the type of payment instrument that they use. For all those who've been out there, if you've been to one Square restaurant, and then you go to another and you ask for a receipt, you don't have to retype in your email address, you don't have to retype in your phone number. There's a tremendous amount of benefit actually to restaurants using that technology. That's all based on the payment stack that we've invested quite a significant amount in. But
As a
outside of
diner,
Square,
as a customer, I've done that so many times, Ming. It's so much easier. Like they swipe the card, it now knows who I am based off of the payment, and then I can just hit one button, and now I'm enrolled in loyalty. That feature has gotten me enrolled in multiple loyalty programs that I probably wouldn't have if it wasn't there.
but maybe it's also just for me as a business traveler, and I have to submit my expenses all the time where I go. I love getting Square receipts. Yes, I do work for them well, but it's just so simple for me to actually then file those receipts so I can get my money back. With respect to off-prem though, so think outside of your four walls, not in person, digital, you may be using a third-party service while still having an integration with your point of sale with Square. So that's a situation where you may not actually be processing payments with. We see that as flexible, but again, with the benefits of having a singular processor, assuming that the economics make sense for you, is one back office, one settlement, how you're managing refunds and voids, chargebacks, the whole bit. And that's where we really shine as a processor.
Yeah, our view is the experience is just so much simpler for an operator when you have one payment provider. Everything's in one place. It's like on a because when before we had built to the Square payments, we were previously using Stripe, and you've got to have another setup. You have another set of deposits into your bank that you have to reconcile. You have another place to go to like dispute or to process refunds. After we integrated with Square on the Square point of sale, like if they want to refund an order, whether it was through Chally online ordering or in person, it's just one place to go. So it just makes it easier across the board. So when we talk about return on time, right, by getting all these things in one place, you're spending less time logging into multiple dashboards. So just kind of, I'm a big fan of having kind of the POS be the be the payments. It also makes our job easier too at Chally, one less thing for us to manage. All right. All right. So looks like that was all the questions. So wanted to thank everybody for this. We have been recording this too. And I believe we'll send that out to the participants here. If you missed part of it or want to kind of go back and see a couple things, all available there. And then I also wanted to thank Ming for hopping on the webinar with me. We've been talking about this for a while. So it's great to finally have you on and kind of go back and forth on some of these questions and help restaurants with their profitability.
Awesome. Really glad we had that opportunity to chat. And for those who have are watching this in the future, if you have questions, obviously reach out. There will be a follow-up link to the webinar.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Ming.